Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. Judy here. If you fight for freedom, democracy, human rights, and science, you've come to the right place. I upload one video to this series each and every week, which talks about dictators and more. My friends, before we dive into today's topic, please allow me to thank the friends who bought me coffee from my website last week. Thank you so much for your kind support, my friends. Thank you. My friends, if you're not new to this channel, you know that I hate dictators. And as an average person who has studied many dictators and dictatorships, I feel I have a duty to warn people whenever I spot a wannabe dictator. Why? Well, like I've said many times, it's because I know that no matter what kind of dictators they are not good for anyone, especially not good for ordinary people. And the impacts they have caused on the country will linger for many years, even decades. So here, I must warn people about dictators and dictatorships, which is why you've been hearing me talking about Trump ever since he decided to run for his second term. Yet, unfortunately, Trump now is the President of the United States, and he's been trying to become a dictator by doing many things that dictators must do. Right, I've talked about it in my previous videos. If you haven't watched them, please check them out in the description. So, no doubt, Americans are on the way to a dictatorship. Yeah, Trump's dictatorship is not fully formed yet. When everyone in the country has to praise Trump, his dictatorship is fully formed. Then, if you're not a billionaire but an ordinary person, if most people decide not to fight, the only thing you can do is to leave. Don't think that you can continue to fight against the authoritarian government single-handedly if you're just an average person. So if Trump's dictatorship is fully formed, you'd better run. However, I don't think Trump's dictatorship will last long if he becomes a dictator. According to the history that I know of, someone like Trump who becomes a dictator will be overthrown in a very short time. Why? Well, first of all, Trump is old and he appears to have dementia. Second, is no military background. If Trump were a young man, say in his 50s, if he had deep military background, his dictatorship would last about 10 to 15 years. So who would overthrow Trump's dictatorship? Students? Generals? Who? In my opinion, if Trump successfully becomes the dictator, his regime will be overthrown by military generals, not students. However, I do believe the uprising might be led by students at first, and then some military generals will take over, just like the April Revolution in South Korea. The student-led uprising forced their dictator from office in 1960, but in 1961 a general seized power in a military coup, and then that general became a dictator himself and ruled over the country for 18 years. Not surprisingly, in 1979, this dictator was overthrown by another general, whose regime was established after a brutal crackdown on the pro-democracy uprising in 1980. The third dictatorship was on its way to be fully formed. However, the wannabe dictator failed because in 1981 the Constitution restricted the President to a single 7-year term. Yes, it tried to amend the document in order to run again in 1987, but it failed. And then in 1987, it resisted the police to open up the regime, but it faced massive public protests, so much so his ally, another general, was elected as the president that year. So right now, South Korea is a stable democratic republic. But as I've said many times, dictatorships cause impacts on the country, the people, and their lives. And the consequences can linger for decades. And from time to time, we will witness a president trying to become a dictator in South Korea. The good thing is, their people are clever enough to know that the dictatorship is not good for them. So they protest a lot, bravely. On the other hand, Japan hasn't had a traditional dictator after World War II, so we haven't discovered the Japanese prime minister who had tried to become a dictator. Before the Second World War, during the 1930s to 1940s, this system was more of a military dictatorship, rather than a single person holding absolute personal power like in some other dictatorships. In my opinion, their experiences of military rule and authoritarianism tell us that never let military generals have the chance to rule over a country. And my friends, a dictatorship is bad for everyone in the country, and the impacts of a dictatorship could linger for years, even decades. So people must stop Trump from successfully becoming a dictator. If he wins, his dictatorship will be overthrown by some generals, which is not good either, maybe worse. Okay, my friends, in case you don't know me yet, I am Judy Faye London, a fan of Jack London. I'm a published writer who writes fiction and non-fiction novels and short stories. You're very welcome to visit my website, judyfaylondon.com, or Amazon to read my poems and my short stories. The last one, Mr. Rat, Candy the Dog, and so on, and my latest non-fiction book, Living with the Walking Dead, a roadmap for achieving your own success. I hope to see you there, and thank you so much for your kind support, and thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channels, Judy, Faye, London, and Judy Plus. Judy, Faye, London is a channel that mainly talks about culture, economics, and dictators and various events and people in human history, while Judy Plus is a channel that talks about interesting discoveries in the world of science.